Welcome to the Spiritist Companion Podcast. My name is Yuri Castro, and I'll be your companion on this journey where we study, reflect, and put Spiritist teachings into practice. If you enjoy what you hear, don't forget to subscribe, to follow our pages, and to send this podcast to someone else as well. Today I wanted to talk about a topic that touches every life on earth: family. What is family from a Spiritist perspective? Why are certain relationships harmonious while others are challenging? How do reincarnation, the law of cause and effect, and free will shape the bonds we form at home? And most importantly, perhaps, how can we live these relationships with more love, with patience and understanding? Well, let's study together. Allan Kardec, the codifier of Spiritism, dedicates an entire chapter to the family in several Spiritist works. But one of the perhaps clearest explanations appears in the Spirit's book. Question 204 is going to ask the following: as we have had many existences, do our relationships extend beyond our present existence? And the spirits will say, it cannot be otherwise. The succession of their corporeal existences establishes among spirits a variety of relationships which date back from their former existences. And here the spirits are talking about the law of reincarnation. They're talking about the previous existences of the spirit while inhabiting a body. And we can see how a lot of the times these relationships that we have with family members, they predate this specific tie that we have right now, those that we call our family members. Sometimes the spirits will be strangers to one another and they reincarnate in the same family for a specific purpose, of course. But most of the time, the spirits under the same roof, or those who are born from one another, or those who are raised together, those have a reason for being that way. And the following question 205, Kardec is going to ask: the doctrine of reincarnation appears to some minds to destroy family ties by carrying them back to periods anterior to our present existence. And the spirits will say that it actually extends those ties, but it does not destroy them. On the contrary, the conviction that the relationships of the present life are based upon anterior affections renders the ties between family members of the same family less precarious. They will also add that it makes the duties of fraternity even more imperative. The family ties cannot be destroyed by the doctrine of reincarnation, quite the opposite. As the Spirit said, it's going to extend them, because if we think about the family as a school or a place that we will learn to love and care about the family as a whole, the entire humanity, then of course it's going to extend those ties. We learn that the family is this microcosm of redemptive obligations in which we live to serve the greater family that comprises all humankind. This sentence was said by Clarencio, who is one of the characters in the book Between Heaven and Earth, psychographed by Chico Xavier by the spirit author André Luiz. Highly recommend reading that book as well. In the Gospel according to Spiritism, we learn that blood ties, they don't necessarily create bonds between spirits. The body comes from the body, but the spirit does not proceed from the spirit, since the spirit is, one, indivisible, and two, already existed before the formation of the body. What the parents provide, the biological parents, is this material wrapping, let's call it, and their duty is to help the intellectual and moral development of their child, in order to further its progress. Those incarnated in the same family, especially as close relations, are as often as not congenial spirits linked by past relationships, which express themselves during their earthly lives by the reciprocated affections that we often see among those spirits. However, it can also happen that these people are complete strangers to each other, or they may be distant from each other due to past aversions, which, while on earth, are translated into mutual antagonisms that can serve as probations as well. Overcoming this antagonism, especially the ones with roots in the past, becomes essential for spiritual advancement. And I wanted to make a parenthesis here in respect to this antagonism, because sometimes it doesn't mean that they had lived before together. There are situations in which this antagonism comes because the spirits have previously embraced antagonistic ideas in other lives. They may have never met each other in other life, but because they have antagonistic ideas, this can translate into this mutual problem that they have with one another. And that's why Kardec is going to say in the Gospel according to Spiritism that the real family ties are not those of blood then, but those of mutual sympathy and the communion of ideas which hold spirits together before, during, and after their incarnations. Some people may ask, why do we reincarnate in certain families? With Spiritism, we learn that families, therefore, are made of, a lot of the times, these affectionate spirits who already love each other and want to progress together. It can also be made of antagonistic spirits who caused each other pain in past lives and often return under the same roof to reconcile, to forgive, and to transform those bonds of hatred into bonds of love. We also learn about the spirits that can come as missionaries, helping to strengthen and uplift the household, and how others may bring limitations or difficulties that awaken compassion and tenderness in those around them. That means the genuine bonds we form, they remain and deepen over lifetimes, while fragile or artificially maintained connections, they will dissolve naturally, especially with time. Family is this school of the soul because home is where our patience is tested, our ego is challenged, our emotional wounds come to the surface, our virtues are awakened. A lot of the times, it's easy to be kind to strangers, but it is at home that the real test of love happens. That's why the spirit author Emmanuel, who psychographed through Chico Xavier, he'll say that in the family, we learn our greatest lesson in renunciation. And these difficult relationships, what do they mean exactly? Some of you may be asking. Well, most people, I think, at some point they may ask, why is my family so difficult? Why do we clash so much? Why do I feel so different from them? And just to summarize what I already mentioned, even in this episode and in the episode of Honor Your Mother and Your Father, a lot of the times a difficult family member may have been someone we hurt in the past. A child who clashes with a parent may be seeking reconciliation after past disagreements. A sibling rivalry may be the echo of old conflicts. A strained marriage may reveal lessons that both spouses agreed to tackle before reincarnating, and so forth and so on. And this does not mean that we should accept abuse or remain in harmful environments. Spiritism never teaches submission to violence. However, it does teach us to understand the spiritual roots behind our challenges and to respond with maturity, responsibility, and respect. Children have the duty to honor their parents, as we talked about in a previous episode here. And parents, well, they have two sacred missions. One, to support the physical development of their children, and number two, to guide their moral and spiritual development. We learn from the Spirit's book that the mission of parents is a true sacred task. God places a child in their care so they may lead it toward progress. Well, let's remember that parents are not owners of their children. They are temporary guardians of immortal spirits who may be much older, wiser, or morally more advanced than they appear. So how can we live family life with more harmony? Here are some practical things that we can do. Number one, we can practice compassion, remembering that everyone at home is fighting in our battles we may not even see. Number two, let's avoid hurtful words, because a harsh word at home can echo for centuries. Number three, let's pray for our family members. Even a 1-minute prayer or something short like that can have great impact, because we know how prayers strengthen bonds, soften hearts, and invite spiritual protection. Let's also refrain from trying to change others by force. Focus on our own efforts, our own reform, because our example, in the end, is the most effective teacher. Number five, let's transform our home into a sanctuary, a home filled with kind words, with respect, with silence when needed, with patience, and why not a little bit of daily gospel reading, because that can help invite the presence of the good spirits. And last but not least, let's embrace forgiveness, because no family harmonizes without forgiveness. So forgive frequently, forgive humbly, forgive without expecting recognition. Let us remember, my dear friends, that family is not a coincidence, it's a divine opportunity. Whether through joy or challenge, harmony or difficulty, each relationship invites us to grow, to understand, to reconcile, and especially to love. Family is the home of the soul, where we begin the work of our greatest transformations. The Spirit author Emmanuel said this through Chico Xavier. So I want us to think about this and honor the families that we have, work toward the families we dream of, and recognize the spiritual purpose behind every bond God has entrusted to us. Remembering that there is no perfect family. After all, we're all spirits still marching toward the plenitude of the Spirit. So how can we put imperfect beings and expect a perfect thing to come out of that? It won't. But the thing is, we're not perfect. Our families are not perfect, but they are the perfect fit for exactly what we need. Thank you so much for joining me in this episode of the Spiritist Companion Podcast, where we talked about a delicate topic, the family as this school of the soul, this laboratory, this temple of love. As usual, if this message helped you, if it touched your heart in any way, share it with someone that you love as well. I will see you next time, and until then, be in peace. Honor your relationships and walk with faith. With fraternal love, your Spiritist companion.